Hello everyone, welcome to this new video. In this video, we're going to talk about electricity. We're going to go into the rooms, run a conduit all the way to the electrical panel, and we'll talk about conduits, wires, switches, and junction boxes. All this is for the 3 spotlights in this hallway that you've already seen. Yes, you've already seen this hallway in a previous video. We're at my place. I replaced the bulky water heater in the closet with an ultra slim model. It's the same hallway and ceiling. We bought the house over 10 years ago. There was a motion detector and light bulb. I replaced the bulb with 3 spotlights. It works, but the detector is wearing out. I considered replacing it, but after my wife suggested switches, that's what I'll do. A switch at each end of the hallway, and to control the hallway directly from the rooms, I'm also going to put switches in each room. So I'll show you that in a moment. We'll go step by step. I'll demonstrate how to wire 750 or even countless switches. First, gather conduits and electrical wires. I'll put a junction box in the attic. You'll see it soon. First, conduit with 5 wires, and there are 2 colors you absolutely have to follow. Yellow-green for ground and blue for neutral. You can't use other colors, that's forbidden. Next, I have a purple wire. That's going to be for my spotlights. It could be neon lights, it could be a bulb, it doesn't matter. These 3 wires will power my spotlights. I have 2 wires left. Which one is the red one? For the phase? It could be black, it could be brown, and the orange wire is for my switch, so these 2 wires will power the switches. Next, I prepare 2 other conduits. It's exactly the same as what we have here, except I separate the red wire, so the phase, and the orange one for my switch. So, in one conduit and in the other conduit, I have the purple wire, the ground in yellow and green, and the blue one. That's the neutral for my spotlights. We have 3 conduits and a junction box for the attic. Everything will connect inside the junction box. So, as you can see, nothing complicated. We run the wires through the conduits. It's not rocket science. This is the easiest step, but now we're going to move on to the most annoying step. That's going into the attic and removing the fiberglass insulation. Protect yourself, wear a mask and suit, or you'll scratch yourself until you bleed. We run conduits and drop them in the walls, though they sometimes get stuck due to other conduits. Be patient and use a fish tape. It'll go down on its own. I made a video on this. The link is in the description if you're interested. Be patient, run the conduits, pull everything through, and once that's done, the hardest part is over. Wireless solutions from Schneider, Legrand, and others work very well. If you can run conduits and wires through the walls, do it. It will last a lifetime. I'm discussing electricity. We need to remove the switches to access the conduits and install new wires. We cut the power, avoid working with electricity on, go to the attic, remove insulation, lay conduits, and proceed from there. All right, let me explain about the junction box. There are more conduits than originally planned. I was supposed to have only 3, but there are 5 wires. The ground, the blue, the purple, the red, the orange, I separate everything. Purple, ground, blue. So, a second and third conduit with red and orange wires are meant to power my first push button. I tap into it for the second, third, fourth, fifth, and so on. This solution works well if you want, but for my work, I'm closing the attic floor. If I ever need to change the ground floor, break walls, or alter the hallway, I won't have access to the conduits because the floor will be sealed. If you have attic and conduit access, you can set this up easily. However, since I'm closing the floor, I won't have access anymore. And if I break down some walls, I'll have to disconnect certain switches, so the others won't be powered anymore. To power them, I would use a Wago junction box, but then what do I do with the junction box? I could hide it in a wall or ceiling, seal it up and plaster over, but if there's ever a problem, I'd have to remember and cut it open again. That's why I prefer keeping everything in the box. If I need to disconnect 1, 2, or 3 switches, I can do it here. I disconnect, pull the wires, or leave them. It doesn't matter, but at least everything is here. And this box. After modifying the framework, I'll always have access to it since it'll be right there. I also keep everything below 1.80 meters. As a gallery, there will be 2 galleries on each side of the house, so you'll see that when we do the work in the attic. So this box, I'll identify it very easily. I'll write on it, switch, hallway, room, thing, etc. So it will be identified, we'll have very easy access to it. So you get it, the advantage is that I have all my wires coming here, I can do whatever I want. The downside is the number of conduits, but this solution works well. If you can access your attic, you can do this setup. Now you know what's left to do. Connect all orange wires, all red wires, purple to purple, ground to ground, and blue to blue. Start by connecting the grounds. Then we'll handle the blue neutral wire. We finish with the purple wire. I've connected the lamp, neon spotlight, whatever you want. So next, in the 5-wire sheath, I only have 2 wires left, the red and the orange. So that's to power the push buttons. All the orange wires together, all the red wires together. So all the wires are connected. We have all the reds together, all the oranges together, the purples, the blues, and the yellow greens. We push everything back in, knowing that for now, I'm leaving it like this. There's a lot of length, even with the sheets, there's way too much. I'll have to take everything apart and rewire it once I've modified the framework, but for now, it stays like this. I replaced all the flush-mounted boxes in each room with waterproof ones, though some say it's pointless. You can use a regular box, but I only use this kind. If it can handle more, it can handle less, so I replaced all my boxes with this type. But if you have regular flush-mounted boxes, you can use them for your partitions. However, for the perimeter, you should only use waterproof boxes. So, we'll be able to replace the room's switch with a double switch. And I'm using the word switch, but that's not the right term. We should actually use the term push button switch. A push button switch is like a regular 2-way switch, except that inside the mechanism, there's a spring so it can return to its original position. So this type of push button is what we use. With the remote switch, you put a remote switch in your panel and you can add as many push buttons as you want to control your room. So that's what we're going to use, but here I already have a switch. So what we're going to do is use a double switch. But one part is a push button, the other part is a classic switch. So the classic part is for my room and the push button part is to control the hallway from each room. And in the hallway, I'm going to put 2 push buttons, one at each end. So if in your room you decide to keep your switch and add a push button like this one, we'll use a double flush mount box, either horizontal or vertical. As you wish, I have the classic 2-way switch part and the push button part quite simply. As I said, the double one, you'll see me get closer and say, hey, there's a blue wire connected to the switch. It doesn't make sense. Well, I think when they built the house, they didn't make things complicated for themselves. There must have been a stock of G1.5 cables since it's 3G 1.5. The ground wire was cut, so they wired the switches with the 3G 1.5 cable, the neutral, the blue wire. They used the black wire for live and another for return. I'll redo it when I'm in the attic and film it for you, since I don't like it. You can figure it out, but honestly, it's not great. I'll bring the camera closer so you can see we've connected the push buttons. It's very simple. So when I turn over my switch, I see a 3-wire cable and a 5 plus a cut piece of ground wire on the back. The black wire connects to the L phase position and the blue wire to position 1. The goal is to disassemble and reassemble in the same way. I keep this one, it can still be useful, so I take my unit, the push button on the left, the switch on the right. It could be the other way around, you just have to switch the spring. But for me, logically, I prefer to have my room here and the hallway on the left. Once again, you do as you like. So we're going to wire the switch, so this part, we take the blue wire for position 1 and the black wire for the phase, and here's what it looks like. So now I've rewired the switch in the room. Now we're going to wire the push button, orange wire, red wire. The push button part will be the same for all push buttons. The red wire goes to the phase and the orange wire to position 1. That's it. My red wire phase connects to the phase terminal, which has a second hole for tapping in. The orange wire can also be run to another push button the same way. If I turn my switch over, I have my part and my push button. So now we're going to do the other parts and it's going to be exactly the same thing. We take the switch, we'll use it for something else, we're going to rewire it. Exactly in the same positions, the phase wire, which is black on the phase terminal, and the blue wire, which is the return on position 1, that's done. So now we can connect the push button, always. The orange wire and the red wire, so the red wire on the phase terminal and the orange wire on position 1. That's what it looks like, and it'll be the same for the other room. The little cover, which fits well, is done. Now I have my part, the push button. As I said, it could be reversed with the spring here and the push button there. So this time I place the switch of the part on the left and the push button on the right. So I'm going to wire my phase from my switch here. This one will come here, okay? So this one goes on the phase terminal, and this time position 1 is at the top. So here in this room, for once, we don't have G1.5 cable. We're getting the switch, the assembly, my switch for the room on the right, and the push button for the hallway on the left. So this one, position 1, we're here. And the phase next to it, like this. So my push button will activate the phase at the bottom. There we go. And we'll put the orange wire in position 1. Right here, that's what it looks like. I think you understood what I did on this panel, because I had the double switch, the switch that was centered and then moved apart. So it was impossible to put in a double box. I wanted to put in a combo to replace this switch plus my hallway. And of course it didn't fit, so a triple box, or else I had to leave the double switch, the switch itself, put it on the right or the left, but it wasn't centered. I didn't like that, so I can put it here in the middle or elsewhere. You can do whatever you want with these two, which I hadn't mentioned until now. A push button is a spring-loaded switch, which is true, and that's how it's sold in stores. Either you buy the spring and add it to your switch, or you buy the push button directly with the spring inside. But on the back, you only have phase and position 1. A regular switch has phase 1 and 2 for making a two-way switch with another. But for a push button, you only need the phase and position 1 wire. Okay, so you strip and connect it, just like its little buddies. As with the others, the red wire is phase and the orange is position 1. Like I said, you only have phase and position 1. Now we just need to reassemble it. So we put the cover on, press it down firmly. Here's what it looks like. Here, as you saw, I drilled with a hole saw. I installed a junction box. I have my orange wire, my red wire. So we take the red wire, the phase, and put it in position L, which represents the phase, and the orange wire. You don't really have a choice, position 1, and that's all there is to do. And once that's done, you can wire the others the same way and add as many as you want. Either by tapping directly from the push button, since you have an input for the phase and another input for the orange wire, so you can tap into the push buttons. As we can bring everything into a demonstration box, a junction box. The cover. I have my push button. Now let's move on. All right, guys, we're moving on to the next step, which is connecting the spotlights. So we're in the dark. I've turned everything off at the detector, the power supply, basically. There's nothing left. I'll remove the detector later. For now, we're starting again from the panel with a conduit. The 5 wires, red, orange, blue, purple, and yellow, green for ground, go into the junction box. I've added 2 conduits with red and orange for the push buttons, plus a third with yellow, green for ground, purple, and blue. This last conduit runs down into the first spotlight hole. I have 2 choices, the second or third spotlight. I run the same yellow, green, purple, and blue conduits and bring them into the box. Branch everything using the same method as the push buttons or use another solution. I'm going to tap into the first spotlight, still using the yellow, green, purple, and blue wires to power the second spotlight. From the second, I power the third, and so on. I'm doing this because there's only 2 meters between each spotlight. It's simple. If I ever need to change anything, I can use the conduit as a pull wire. Bring the ground wire, even if your spotlight is plastic. If you switch to a metal one later, you'll be glad you did. For now, I'll connect it to the ground terminal. Even if it's not directly connected to my spotlight, at least the wire won't be hanging loose. Okay, let's get the stepladder, get up to the spotlight, and connect everything. Of course, I'm also reusing the spotlights I had connected before. They have built-in bulbs, which isn't ideal since a bulb failure means replacing the whole spotlight. However, in 7 or 8 years, none have failed. They're from Philips. I'll share the reference and link in the description if I find it. I think they're discontinued and replaced by newer models, but they're very reliable. So one thing to know is that, well, it fell on the floor. I'll show it to you in a moment. I have a cover that I put over the spotlight so it's not in contact with the insulation. And I do the same for the transformer. I put a cover over it too. Okay, so now we can connect the spotlight. I only have the neutral and the live wire to connect, but I'll still connect the ground. I have an input, so at least it will be connected. But on my spotlight, I don't have a ground wire since it's made of plastic. Okay, so we take the ground wire, connect it, and do the same with the other one. So that's connected. I'll bring you closer for the other spotlight so you can see better. The neutral, we'll put it here and connect it next to it, and we have the purple wire left, which acts as the live wire. And there you go, everything is connected. Okay, so next, we close the box, that's closed, and once it's closed, we put everything back up there. I told you, I'll put the bells through the attic, we fold this down without pinching our fingers. That can be nice, and there you go. It's done, that's it, let's move on to the next one. So for the second spotlight, well, it's exactly the same thing. The ground, the second ground wire, that's done. The purple wire, we put it on the phase with its buddy, that's done. We connect the 2 remaining neutral wires here. That's it, just pack everything back in the box and you're done. So now we're doing the last one, the ground, the neutral, and the last one, the purple. So 2 phases, 2, there you go, it's done, everything is connected. We put everything back in the box, that's it. That's it, and so this is the type of cover that I'm going to put above the spotlight and the transformer. You'll find the link in the description if you're interested, thank you. All right, last step, we save the best for last. We're going to connect everything at the panel. My conduit with the 5 wires comes right here. It's the last conduit I brought down, so I have my 5 wires. The red and orange are for the push buttons. Purple, blue, yellow, green are for the spotlight fixture, bulb, neon, strip, LED, 50 bulbs if you want. So my conduit, the 5 wires, we're going to connect everything. But what is a remote switch for? So what is a remote switch? Well, it's this module that we're going to put in the panel. The difference is between the classic and silent versions. If your panel is in the living room, choose the silent version. If it's farther away, like in a garage or laundry room, choose the classic version since it's cheaper. But you can hear the famous click as soon as you press a button. It will engage and make a clicking sound. In my case, the panel is in the former garage, now a workshop, and will eventually be part of the living room extension. I'm tearing down this partition, so I'll use the silent version. Otherwise, the principle is the same. What is the remote switch for? It lets you control a lighting circuit from multiple push buttons like the 7 we installed. Did you see? As for the wiring, it's very simple. We only need 2 wires. Well, at the remote switch, we're going to connect the 2 wires. The red and the orange, plus the purple, the ground, and of course the blue. So the ground will go directly to the terminal. All others will connect to the remote switch and the 10 amp circuit breaker, as the remote switch must pair with a 10 amp breaker. Also, everything on your line must be protected by a residual current device. Normally, your panels have several versions of remote switches, including the large Schneider for war. You can use any brand of panels either as a module or in a flush-mounted or junction box. But for me, I really prefer the module version because it's easier and quicker to identify in the panel. Let's imagine you install a remote switch, so it's going to look like a rectangular box with lots of holes. To put your wires in a junction box, you hide that in your walls, you sell your house. The new owner has a problem. He calls an electrician. The electrician comes and says, yeah, but wait, I need to find your junction box. He's going to spend several minutes, maybe even hours, if it's well hidden in the fiberglass insulation. Boom, there's the bill. There, you put it in the panel, you identify it very quickly, so that's why I prefer this version. I'm bringing the camera closer. We'll proceed with the connection, and you'll see, like I said, it's super simple. The first step is to install the 10 amp circuit breaker. I took the chance to bring a red wire and a blue wire, which I placed here. For now, they're going to power the relay switch. I can't power the relay switch directly through the bus bar, so next we place the relay switch next to it. I can put the bus bar back in place. The ground wire connects directly to the ground bar. So, in my conduit, I only have 4 wires left. The blue, the red, the orange, and the purple. We set the orange and purple ones aside. What we're interested in for now are the blue and red wires which we're going to connect. Under the circuit breaker, with the 2 ends of wire I brought in, the blue and the red, which go back up to the top, we'll connect them to the relay switch soon, so I'll cut and strip them now. The 2 neutral wires position end, so neutral, from the 10 amp circuit breaker. The 2 phase wires, phase position, on the 10 amp circuit breaker. So from the 10 amp circuit breaker, I have my neutral wire going directly to my light fixture, the phase wire going directly to the push button, and I'm also powering it with the blue wire and the red wire. Neutral and phase to my step relay that will connect on the top, so on the top of the step relay. The blue wire is the neutral on the end position, which corresponds to the neutral, and then the red wire, the phase, on the L terminal. So now I've powered the step relay through the 10 amp circuit breaker. We go from below and connect it on the top, so we have 2 wires left, the orange and the purple. The orange controls my push buttons, the purple controls my 3 spotlights. On the step relay, there's a switch icon, so that's going to be my orange wire, and a lamp icon, the purple wire, so the orange wire. We place it here on the switch, and we place the purple wire at the lamp. That's it. My push buttons with the orange wire control the remote switch, and the purple wires are for my lamps. So I turn the power back on, him in the on position. If I press the remote switch, it turns on. I control the hallway directly via the remote switch, and so now I turn off the hallway. So as you can see, the wiring is super simple. The 10 amp circuit breaker is powered by bus bars below, with neutral on the left and phase on the right. We supply both directly. And we go out with 2 small pieces of wire to power the remote switch, the neutral and phase. And below, I have my push button with the orange wire and my lamp with the purple one. I rewired it so everyone can understand. We have a 10 amp circuit breaker remote switch, spotlight or bulb, combined push button switch, and another push button. We could keep going like this endlessly with the push buttons and the 10 amp circuit breaker. The neutrals go in here, the phases next to them. We power the remote switch with the neutral and the phase on top. Below we have the push button, so the orange wire, and the lamp, the purple wire, the lamp, the neutral, the purple, and the ground, if you need the ground. For the push buttons, we branch off the orange and red wires and so on. As I mentioned, this process can continue indefinitely. Now that everything is wired, we can check if it works. In this room, I took back the switch to control the lighting. Same for the other rooms. And next to it, I have the hallway controlled by the push button. I turn it on or off as I want. You can hear the spring slightly, but it's not an issue. In the hallway here, I turn it off and on, just like in the other rooms, and you can see that immediately. I can control the lighting in my room. I can control the hallway directly from this push button. I'll leave it on from here and we'll turn it off using the push button we added here. So I can control the hallway from any room. Let's check that in another room, for example. Here, I control the lighting in the room and I can turn the hallway on and off directly from the push button. And from another room, we'll leave it here and check the end of the hallway. So this one, we added it. I turn it on and off. The hallway works perfectly. And since then here, the lighting in the room and of course the hallway. It's good, guys. Mission accomplished. It's done. I'm pretty happy. Well, happy is a big word because it's just a sensor and some push buttons. I'm glad I can remove it soon. For now, I'm leaving it until I have drywall work. Then I'll insert the round piece, plaster, and paint. You know the story? I'm leaving it as is for now to avoid fiberglass insulation falling into the hallway and getting yelled at. At least the push buttons are installed, so that's good. He was wearing out and getting temperamental. You had to set the brightness to max for it to detect anything. Now that the push buttons are installed, you noticed one room has a push button with its switch near the last push button I installed. With the triple box, it's in that room. I'll decide that I don't need it because I have the other one right next to it. And I'll be able to take the line and bring it here to the middle of the hallway or use it to add another push button there, somewhere else. Basically, I can do whatever I want or remove one. The remote switch and push buttons let you do anything you want with wiring that never changes. We'll meet again soon for more work, maybe some electrical projects too. As you saw, the switches are wired oddly. I need to remove everything and run 2 new wires. I'll film it for you. After removing the fiberglass insulation, I saw it was messy. There are about 3 or 4 junction boxes and splices everywhere. We'll redo everything. And once the fiberglass insulation is removed, you'll see what I mean. It was done back in the day, and like I said, it's a bit of a mess, okay? In the meantime, take care. I wish you all the best and see you very soon.